सियासियात में एजाज हैदर की तरफ से खुश आमदेद। सितंबर 11, 2001 के जो वाक़यात अमरीका में हुए थे उनके बारे में अमूमी जो तज्ज़िया है वो ये है कि उससे दुनिया की तारीख़ जो है बहुत हवालों से तब्दील हुई और ख़ित्ते में आज भी जो कुछ हो रहा है उनका ताल्लुक़ जो है उन वाक़यात के साथ है। आज हम आपकी मुलाकात कराने चले हैं साबिक़ अमरीकी सफ़ीर पाकिस्तान में एम्बेसडर विलियम बी माइलम से। बिल माइलम जो हैं वो 98 में यहाँ पे तशरीफ़ लाए और जुलाई 2001 को यहाँ से गए, तो बहुत सारे वाक़यात से बाखबर हैं जो उस ज़माने में हुए। गो के वो यहाँ से जा चुके थे जिस वक़्त ये सितंबर 11 का वाक़या हुआ, लेकिन उस दौरान जो तालिबान के साथ मुलाकातें थी और इस खित्ते में जिस किस्म की तब्दीलियाँ हो रही थी उससे वो वाकिफ़ हैं और उस हवाले से उनसे बात करेंगे। उसके अलावा वो अब विल्सन सेंटर में सीनियर फेलो भी हैं और किताब तहरीर कर चुके हैं, बांग्लादेश एंड पाकिस्तान फ्लर्टिंग विद फेलियर इन साउथ एशिया, जो कि कोलंबिया यूनिवर्सिटी प्रेस ने 2009 में शाया की। विलियम माइलम बांग्लादेश में भी अमेरिका के सफ़ीर रह चुके हैं, उसके अलावा लीबिया में अमेरिका के सफ़ीर की सफारतकारी भी की और लाइबेरिया में भी चीफ ऑफ मिशन रह चुके हैं। तो एक बहुत ही कलरफुल शख्सियत, उनसे आपकी बात करवाते हैं। I'm going to start from the time that you were here and then move forward and then we'll have the back and forth. As I mentioned, you arrived here, correct me if I'm wrong, straight from Liberia.
That's correct.
Which means you never went and touched base in Washington.
No, they thought I ought to be here right away because I think they were planning that cruise missile strike and they wanted me to be here to clean up whatever was, fallout of that.
I see. And did you manage to do that?
Well, the fallout didn't last very long, and I think I did, yeah, because, it was a different world then, but the embassy got back to normalcy pretty quickly.
But that cruise missile strike, in many ways, was the precursor to much that came later.
Indeed it was.
So while you were here, exclusively focusing first on Afghanistan, what was the information that you were getting out of that place?
Well, we didn't have very good information out of Afghanistan. Looking back, I can see that there were great flaws in it, and we knew it at the time. It was very scattered and fragmented. But there were people there who reported to us, and so we knew. We were mainly interested in the movements of Osama bin Laden and his crew, and I think we kept pretty good track of them.
And you were also meeting with the Taliban leaders at the time.
Well, that started a little later, but yeah, within a few months. Actually, it didn't. I think I met with the foreign minister, Mutawakil, within the first month that I was there. And it was always with him and with his deputy, whom I met with many times, a gentleman named Mullah Jalil, who was killed in the war later on. It was always to try and persuade them that bin Laden they'd be better off without bin Laden, let me put it that way, and that we would hope that they would throw him out of their country, and his people too, and Al-Qaeda, the whole apparatus.
But what was their point of view?
The point of view was always the same, at least what we heard was always the same, that their code of honor required them to be hospitable to guests, and he was a guest, and they couldn't do that. And of course, they then asked us, when we said, well, he may be a guest, but he's also a criminal, they asked us for proof of that. We gave them at one point an enormous volume of charges that came from the indictment of Osama before a New York court. I don't know whether they ever looked at it or not, but we certainly tried to pass along the evidence that we had given in court.
Almost immediately after the U.S. offensive in October 2001, the Washington Post came up with a story which said that there was a plan during President Clinton's time in which it was some kind of snatch and grab operation. The U.S. Special Forces with the Pakistani Special Forces who were supposed to go in and try and pick up bin Laden, and this was a plan that was cancelled by General Musharraf when he took over in October '99. What was the reality behind that?
Well, I don't know that it ever got to the specifics of a snatch operation. The idea came up in a meeting between Prime Minister Sharif and the President in December '98, when the Prime Minister was on a visit to Washington, that we might help them put together some sort of a special operations force that would be capable of doing something like that. And we helped for a while, but I think we determined pretty early that it wasn't going to go anywhere, and I don't think it ever got specific.
Who came up with this idea? The Americans?
Well,
I
wasn't in the meeting. No, I think the Pakistanis did.
Oh, so
this was a meeting between the President and the Prime Minister. I wasn't in it, but I understand it came up from him.
Oh, so what you're saying is that then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif came up with this idea and suggested this to President Clinton, that Pakistan could help the U.S. snatch bin Laden.
I don't know about snatch. I wouldn't go that far, Ejaz. I think that it was the idea of a special force that would do something, but I don't think they ever got to the what.
Because I remember President Musharraf saying that as a special forces person himself, he thought that it was completely harebrained.
Well, he told me later, much later when he took over, that he did think the idea was pretty screwy, and he had put a stop to it. But in fact, it had really stopped months before he took over, as far as I'm concerned. We never heard much about it after about the early spring of 1999, actually.
Well, going back to what you said about the Taliban asking for evidence of bin Laden's complicity in some of these terrorist incidents, you said you gave them evidence from what a court in New York had determined.
Well, you know, when we indict people, we have to present a thick file of evidence that they have committed a felony or a crime.
So this evidence was gathered by the U.S. intelligence?
In part, by the U.S. intelligence, by I think also the FBI and its intelligence services. So it was a joint, but I don't know where all the information came from. I just know it was there.
But why did the U.S. insist on bin Laden being handed over to the United States? Because there was this thing from the Taliban that they'd probably hand him over to the OIC.
You know something, I've heard this before, that somehow we were insisting that he be given to the U.S. But you know, in all the conversations I had where I discussed this with the Taliban, I never said that, and I don't believe that was our position. Our position was they should expel him, that he would be brought to justice in some way if he were outside of Afghanistan where he was under the Taliban protection. I reject the idea that we actually insisted on them giving him to us. We did not to my knowledge.
Did the Saudis at any point get involved in this?
Well, the Saudis got involved on their own, and as far as I know, and this happened, I think, quite early on, the intelligence chief of Saudi Arabia, who later became, I think, the ambassador, went to Mullah Omar, and in fact, the story was, I've never seen this documented, but the story was that they were told that, yes, they would hand him over to the Saudis, and then Mullah Omar, the second time the intelligence chief came, he reneged.
Oh, he reneged?
He reneged, yeah.